Welcome to Short Stories with Julie. I am the aforementioned Julie. I am a writer, and I like to share these short stories. These are short stories that I have written, and I like to share these short stories with you. So, without further ado, A Deadly Affair. It had taken him 6 weeks, but finally tonight he would have his prize. He had thought of every detail, every obstacle. Nothing would stop him. He was the best. In truth, the assignment had turned out easier than he thought. Nearly a dozen had tried before him, and they had all failed. If the reward hadn't been enticing by itself, the challenge and prestige of accomplishing this kill would have been. He tested the sharpness of his blades, twin daggers as efficient for close combat as ranged. Perfect. Of course, if he had a choice, he would probably strangle the victim. It was his preferred method for dispatching someone. To see the life leaving someone's eyes was intoxicating. He shivered in anticipation, but quickly shoved the emotions down. He couldn't be distracted for the task at hand. He wandered the city, leaving packages in several alleys surrounding the palace. He waited until the sun had completely set, then found the hidden doorway on the east side of the palace walls. The information had cost him a lot of gold and time. He slipped through, unnoticed, a shadow amongst shadows. Now, the hard part. He had observed the guards' movements for weeks, memorizing their habits and schedules. He knew which ones were attentive, and most importantly, which ones slacked off. The last guard turned the corner. He counted to 3, then walked calmly through the courtyard. He had exactly 10 seconds before the next guard would appear, and he would be discovered. As the 10th second elapsed, he hid beneath the window against the wall. The guard on the balcony appeared, none the wiser. He waited another 6 seconds and slipped into the open window. He had paid handsomely for a guard to leave it open. It had been a challenge to find a guard that would be bribed. He was nearly there. He had made it inside the palace, but not yet to the princess's room. She had been victim to several assassination attempts over the years, and her room was heavily guarded. He didn't know why someone wanted her dead so badly, but they paid well, and it wasn't his job to question the client. He was here to get the job done. He had landed in a laundry room. He grabbed servant garb and placed it over his own clothes, keeping his head low to avoid suspicion. He easily navigated the halls, blending in with the other serving staff. The princess's chambers were in the top floor of the furthest tower. Soon there were no more serving staff, and the stairs were empty. He stashed his disguise for later and melted into the shadows once more. There were no rotating shifts here. A contingent of 15 soldiers waited by the barred door. No one except those soldiers came in or out of the girl's room. Still out of sight from the guards, he took his ace in the hole, an invisibility potion. He tasted the familiar sickly sweet brew, and his body grew very cold. He silently made his way as close to the door as he dared. He counted another 5 seconds, and explosions rattled the palace. His packages had gone off, right on time. The guards looked at each other nervously, but none of them left their post. He had expected this. The second round of explosions went off near the tower. The commander tapped 4 of the soldiers, and they went in to check on the princess as the other 10 stayed alert, weapons out. This was his chance. He quickly slipped between the soldiers. Staying low to the ground, he followed the commander in. He smiled an invisible smile. He loved the irony that in checking up on the princess, they were in fact letting the danger in. Beyond the door there was a short hallway. There was a deadly trap in that hallway that could only be stopped with a combination known only by the commander. The second door was opened, and a lavish room lay beyond, decorated in rich red and gold. He slipped to the side, waiting for the guards to leave again. He couldn't see the princess, and for a brief moment he feared all his preparation had been for nothing. Then a figure appeared from behind a curtain. "Commander, why do you disturb me?"
"We came to check on you. There have been explosions outside."
"Well, you've checked. Satisfied?"
"Perhaps a few of us should stay inside with you."
"It is already enough that my father has me trapped in here. The least you can do is give me my privacy. Now leave."
"Of course, Your Majesty."
The commander bowed stiffly while the other guards were still looking intently around the room. They followed their commander's lead and bowed as they all left the room. The assassin waited. He needed to be sure the guards were back in position. As he crouched there, he observed his target. She was not what he had expected. She had an ageless beauty to her, but this was no child. She was a woman. Her skin was pale, and she seemed frail, as if too much exertion would kill her instantly. This was going to be easy. She removed the heavy robe. The assassin's pulse quickened. She wore a transparent nightgown. He stroked his daggers. Now was the time to strike. He hesitated. Her beauty in that slender neck was so enticing. He could take his time with her. She sat down on one of the plush chairs in the room. "If you are done staring, assassin, I would like to see you." He froze. How did she know he was there? He worried, staying there, as it might be a trap. "If you're afraid I'll scream and alert the guards, you don't need to worry. I have been waiting to die for a long time. I figured I deserved to see who had succeeded in defying my father." He weighed the risk and ultimately was confident he could finish the job at any time. He could have a little fun first. He stood tall, his dagger spinning in his hands as he allowed his invisibility to fall. She smiled, lightly running her fingers on her collarbone. "You are more handsome than I expected. Come, sit with me." He sat in the seat in front of her, trying to read her intentions. Up close there was no denying her appeal. Her lips were a luscious red, and her eyes were dark, mischievous. Her skin was smooth, perfect. Her hair was loosely tied back, a few strands falling on either side of her face. "You don't seem afraid. Should that worry me?" "I am simply ready for the release of death. Ever since the first attempt on my life, my father has kept me locked in here for my protection. It has been a dull existence. I look forward to the end. May I ask how you intend to end it?" "I prefer strangulation, but if you wish a quick death, I could do the blade instead." He was surprised at his own openness. He had never met anyone who wanted to die before. It made him off balance. She was so calm. They could have been discussing the weather. "If you prefer strangulation, by all means. I wouldn't want to influence your decision." He felt invigorated, stimulated. A small part of him, in the back of his mind, screamed a warning. This was too good to be true. "What's the catch?" "I do have a request, if you permit me." "Depends on the request." "Kiss me." He must have looked confused because she laughed. It was a sultry laugh. "I don't understand." "I have been alone for nearly a decade. I wish to be kissed at least once before I go." He didn't usually mix business with pleasure, especially this type of pleasure. But there was a part of him that really wanted to indulge her request before he concluded this night's business. "Who am I to deny a royal request? But time is up. I don't intend on getting caught. We do this now." "Very well." She walked gracefully to her bed, red satin sheets gleaming in the firelight. She removed her nightgown, laying completely naked on the bed. He swallowed hard. "What are you doing?" "I want to leave this world the way I came into it. I hope that isn't a problem." He approached and leaned over her. She closed her eyes, waiting. He kissed her. It was a long, tender kiss. Her hands reached up into his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss changed from innocent to insistent. There was no denying his body as she pressed against him, moaning with need. It didn't take long for his own clothing to be removed as he answered her call. Once they were done, he rolled off her, breathing hard. He was confused by his own desire. What was this hold she had over him? "What is going on? This shouldn't have happened." "Simply fun before death, my love." "My love?" She straddled him and took his hands, placing them on her throat. This was it. This was what he was waiting for. Something was wrong, however. Her neck was small, frail. She should have been gasping for air. He should have been hearing all the little bones snap, but she smiled. "Did it ever occur to you to ask yourself if instead of keeping everyone out, they were actually keeping me in?" Her eyes were no longer black, but had changed to a shade of deep red. She smiled again. This time her canines were long and sharp. Panic welled up as he tried to reach for his daggers, but she was too strong. There was a sharp pain in his neck as her teeth sunk in. He tried choking her again, using all his strength. He was a strong man, but his efforts seemed to only encourage her more. Soon he lost all feeling in his hands and arms. They dropped back onto the bed. He couldn't move anymore. His breathing became shallow, slow. Finally his vision faded as the beautiful creature arced back in ecstasy, his blood running down her chin. The assassin was dead. The princess shivered in bliss. She donned her nightgown and her robe. She walked up to the door and yelled for the commander. He entered on his own this time. "I am done." "Was he satisfying, mistress?" She sighed in remembered delight and licked her blood-stained lips. "Oh, yes. Send another contract out. I'm still hungry. The end. If you enjoyed this short story and you would like to see more of my short stories, you can of course check the other ones I have done in, I forget which place I put it, but in one of the cards, so you can check my playlist and see the other short stories I have narrated so far. And if you want to see my most recent short stories, you can of course check out my Patreon. And if you want to support me, just check out my Patreon, and I have different things, insider scoop on my novels, because I also write novels. And you can find out a little bit more about that and a little bit more about me. And of course, you can become a patron and get access to my short stories in written form through I have a newsletter, and that's where I send my short stories. And you're the first one to see not only my new short stories, but you also get to see these videos first. And these, I kind of do the videos as a backlog of short stories I did last year and things like that. So that just kind of the way I do things. So thank you very much for watching and listening, and have a fabulous day. Bye-bye.